Welcome back. Close your eyes and let the heavy, slow rhythm of the dark ocean pull you under. Tonight, we are leaving the safety of the solid land behind. We are stepping into the damp, suffocating reality of a pirate ship in the early 18th century. When you picture the golden age of piracy, you might imagine roaring cannons, glittering treasure chests, and the romantic illusion of ultimate freedom. But the truth is far darker, much smellier, and filled with a crushing, inescapable boredom. Let us begin at the very start of your nightmare. It rarely starts with a grand adventure. It usually begins with a mistake, or simply being in the wrong place, at the worst possible time. You are a simple sailor, working the merchant routes, hauling cargo through the hot, sticky Caribbean. Your life isn't perfect, but it has a steady rhythm, until a shadow appears on the horizon. It is a ship, flying a black flag. It looks like it is barely holding together, rotting wood and patched sails, but it moves fast, like it is possessed by the sea itself. You don't even get a chance to panic. Before the cannon fire slams into your hull, splinters of wood fly like razors through the air. The shouting begins. The pirates board. They are not gentle. They scream curses, wave rusted blades, and fire pistols that smell intensely of burning metal and sulfur. You drop your knife. You raise your hands. You hope they will just let you live. And they do. But surviving is where your true punishment begins. You are press-ganged, dragged by the collar onto their ship, shoved below decks, and told to say goodbye to your old life. You are now part of the crew, a forced recruit in the most brutal, unsanitary job on Earth. Your first night aboard is a masterclass in misery. The ship rocks endlessly, violently, like a wild beast trying to fling you into the black water. You are sent below deck, to the crew's quarters. There is no privacy here. None. You sleep on a damp, rotting wooden board, or in a canvas hammock that reeks of mildew and old sweat. Dozens of men are packed into this suffocating dark, sleeping shoulder to shoulder. You hear the heavy, wet breathing of 50 other men. Someone near you is snoring so loud, with a wet rattle in his chest, that you think he might be dying in his sleep. Conversations happen in the dark. Arguments, groans, muttered threats, and men yelling out from their nightmares. And the air down here is almost unbreathable. It is thick, stagnant, and heavy in your lungs. It smells like old cheese left out in the blazing sun, mixed with wet dog and a bold splash of raw sewage. If hell has a scent, it was perfected in the belly of a pirate ship. You try to breathe through your mouth, shallow and careful, pretending you are not inhaling the exhales of a dozen unwashed criminals. The wood of the hull around you is constantly shifting, groaning, and creaking under the immense pressure of the dark ocean. It is a terrifying sound, a constant, heavy reminder that only a few inches of rotting, waterlogged timber separate you from a cold, black abyss. You lie awake, listening to the water slapping against the hull. Slap, slap, slap. You miss the weirdest things about the land. You miss walking in a straight line. You miss the smell of grass, the taste of fresh bread, the sound of birds that do not screech. Those memories haunt you, like a lullaby you can no longer hum. You are miles from any coast, surrounded by killers, living in a drifting coffin. As the night drags on, the ship sways, up and down. You close your eyes and try to block out the smell, the sounds, the fear. You wait for morning, not knowing that the daylight only brings the grueling reality of the pirate's labor. And when that daylight breaks, it offers no relief, just a gray, hazy sky, and the sharp crack of the bosun's whip calling you to the deck. You spend your hours hauling thick, salt-crusted ropes that tear the skin from your bare palms. You scrub the wooden deck with sand, trying to wash away the accumulated grime of 100 unwashed men, But the true horror of this endless day isn't the back-breaking work. It is the gnawing, hollow ache in your stomach, the desperate hunger. Survival on a pirate ship means slowly poisoning yourself just to stay alive. Fresh food is a myth. It vanished weeks ago. Your primary ration is a dense, heavy block called hardtack. It is a biscuit made of nothing but flour and water, baked until it is as hard as a cobblestone. To bite into it directly is to risk shattering your teeth. But the hardness is not the worst part. The dark, humid belly of the ship is a paradise for pests. Weevils and pale, writhing maggots burrow deep inside the biscuits. A seasoned pirate learns a grim trick. He eats his hardtack in the dead of night, in pitch blackness, so he does not have to see the white grubs moving in his hands. You soak the biscuit in sour beer, just to soften it. You close your eyes and chew, ignoring the crunch of the beetles between your teeth. Meat is a luxury, but a cursed one. Beef and pork are heavily salted to preserve them, stored in wooden barrels for years. By the time it reaches your rusted tin plate, it is black, hard as the ship's mast, and thickly crusted with salt. Boiling it does nothing to soften the miserable flesh. It tastes of nothing but brine and deep despair. You chew until your jaw throbs, swallowing it down just to stop your stomach from cramping. To make things worse, your ship's cook seems to take personal pride in making everything taste like regret. He uses a rusted blade and seasons the boiling pot with something called ship spice, which is probably just ground up rope and sea salt. He grunts if you ask for seconds, and he will throw a heavy iron ladle at your head if you complain. And we must not forget the rats. They thrive below deck, feeding on crumbs and anything soft. The rats look far healthier than the crew. Sometimes, on truly desperate voyages, they are considered a delicacy. You haven't seen anyone eat a rat yet, but you have definitely seen starving men eyeing them in the dark. And then, there is the thirst. Fresh water is the most precious commodity on board. Yet it is the most revolting. Stored in wooden casks, it quickly becomes stagnant. After just a few weeks under the blistering Caribbean sun, algae blooms in the dark barrels. The water turns a thick, slimy green. It smells intensely of sulfur and wet rot. Yet, when the midday sun is burning your skin and your throat feels like cracked earth, you drink it, you hold your breath, close your eyes, and swallow the foul liquid, praying you don't vomit it back up into the sea. This dreadful diet leads to the most terrifying predator on the open ocean. It is not the Royal Navy, it is scurvy. A severe lack of nutrients means your body simply begins to fall apart. The symptoms are slow and insidious. First comes the profound lethargy. You feel too tired to move, too weak to climb the heavy rigging. Then, your gums begin to swell, turning a bruised, sickly black. Your teeth loosen in your jaw. One by one, they fall out into the palm of your filthy hand. You cannot chew. You can barely speak. Old wounds, healed for years, mysteriously split open and bleed anew. Your body is slowly, quietly, unknitting itself. You lie in your hammock, listening to the men around you groaning in pain, smelling the sweet, sour reek of decaying flesh, and you realize the sea doesn't have to drown you to kill you. It just lets you rot, slowly, from the inside out. Keep breathing, slow and heavy, as the ship drifts endlessly on into the dark. And in that endless dark, the true paranoia begins. When the sun finally sets, the ship does not sleep. It simply changes. The night watch is a grueling, terrifying duty. You are posted near the aft deck, with a rusted musket that is too damp to fire, the lantern beside you. swings with the slow, hypnotic rhythm of the waves, casting warped, monstrous shadows across the heavy rigging. The ship creaks and groans louder at night, a symphony of rotting wood protesting its own existence, and the sea, the vast, black water, whispers against the hull. Sometimes it sounds like distant laughter. Sometimes it sounds like something breathing, right beneath the damp planks. You try not to think about that. You stare into the absolute blackness, looking for enemy sails, until your eyes burn, and your mind begins to slip. Sleep deprivation takes a heavy toll out here. Days blend into nights. Your muscles ache constantly. Your eyelids twitch. You start seeing things in the dark. Ghostly ships that vanish when you blink. Men who died weeks ago, standing quietly in the shadows of the mainmast. You catch yourself talking to the wood, whispering to the wind, begging the sea to leave you alone. You are not the only one. A man named Henley whispers to the ocean every night, asking it to swallow him whole. Another just stares at his hands, flexing his stiff fingers, as if he is not sure they are real anymore. Out here, reality gets slippery, and when you are alone with nothing but sea and stars, your brain fills in the blanks with whatever nightmares it can dig up. Pirates are deeply superstitious. The dark is filled with bad omens. A red sunrise, a strange bird landing on the rigging, a sudden drop in the wind. The crew believes in these signs, like absolute gospel. If you break a superstition, you become a curse to the ship. You learn to watch your step. You learn never to whistle at night, for fear of calling up a violent storm. But the sea and the madness are not the only monsters. You soon learn that a pirate ship is not a place of lawless freedom. It is a floating prison, bound by the code, a set of rules, more rigid and far more stressful than any naval law. Ignorance of the code is no excuse. It is whispered between the men, like ghost stories. Rule 1: equal shares of the miserable loot. Rule 2: keep your weapons clean. Rule 3: no gambling when the sun goes down. The punishments for breaking these rules are swift and designed to break your spirit without killing you. You see a young boy caught stealing a tiny, worthless silver ring. The captain does not yell. He does not blink. He simply points to the mainmast. The boy is tied up. The crew gathers in dead silence. The boatswain steps forward with the whip. It is an old, heavy leather thing. You hear it whistle through the damp air, a low, terrible hiss, followed by a sharp crack. The sound echoes over the empty water. The boy cries out, once, twice, and then just breathes raggedly, staring into the void. You turn away. You stare out at the sea, pretending the salt wind is stinging your eyes, because on a pirate ship, showing sympathy is a weakness, and weakness makes you a target. You learn to be invisible. Not too lazy, not too eager. Just a ghost, blending into the rotting wood. There are worse fates than the whip. Marooning is the captain's favorite threat. You hear quiet stories of men left on a deserted sandbar, with nothing but a pistol and a single shot. Not enough to survive, just enough to end the thirst, when the blistering sun becomes too much to bear. This is the reality of your new world. You survive the hunger, you survive the sickness, only to realize that the scariest enemy is not the Royal Navy. It is the man sleeping in the hammock next to you, sharpening his blade in the dark, wondering if he can trust you, wondering if you will be the next to break the code. You feel the cold handle of your own knife. You close your heavy eyes and wait for a dawn that you hope will never bring another ship. But your hope is entirely in vain. Because one morning, the lookout finally calls it, sails on the hazy horizon. You expect the wild cheering, the romantic rush of adrenaline from the stories, but there is only a tense, suffocating silence. a heavy dread settling in the empty stomach of every man on board. The captain does not order you to hide. He does not tell you to sneak up quietly. He simply points, and the black flag is raised. The Jolly Roger snaps in the wind. Not a cartoon skull, but a crude, terrifying threat, painted in tar. It is not a symbol of fun. It is a promise of violence, and a heavy burden to carry into the wind. As you close the distance, the grim reality of combat sets in. It is not an elegant dance of flashing swords and witty words. A pirate battle is a clumsy, deafening, and miserable pile of smoke and panic. The first cannon fires, and the noise is indescribable. You do not just hear it, you feel it in your teeth, vibrating through your tired bones. The deep, concussive boom shakes the entire rotting world you stand on. The recoil nearly throws the gunners off their feet. A thick, choking cloud of sulfur and black powder fills the air. You cannot see. You can barely breathe. Your eyes burn and water as splinters of wood rain down around you, like sharp, wooden wasps. You duck instinctively, covering your head, deafened by the high ringing in your ears. The cannons are not precise. They are just heavy iron tubes, meant to smash and terrify. You watch a cannonball miss completely, splashing uselessly into the sea. The gunners curse in the fog, and now you have to help them haul the massive, smoking iron beast back into place. The coarse ropes burn your hands. The heat of the metal sears through your shirt. When the grappling hooks are finally thrown, the boarding is less of a heroic charge and more of a desperate, exhausted scramble. Men slip on the damp wood, coughing in the gray fog. You swing your rusted blade, blindly, hoping to hit anything that is not dressed like you. It is exhausting. Within minutes, your lungs are burning, your arms feel like lead. There is no glory here, just frightened men, swinging wildly through the blinding smoke. And when the enemy finally surrenders, out of sheer terror, the victory feels entirely hollow. It tastes like copper, and vomit, and endless fatigue. And then comes the looting, the grand treasure. You dig into the enemy cargo hold, expecting glittering chests of Spanish silver. Instead, your hands sink into sacks of raw sugar, heavy barrels of molasses, bales of cheap cotton, and damp tobacco, a warehouse on water. This is your prize. You haul heavy crates for hours, your back screaming in pain, your fingers bleeding from the rough splinters. You are not a king of the sea. You are a dock worker, forced to load cargo under the burning sun. The sugar dust sticks to your sweat, turning into a sticky, uncomfortable crust on your skin. The looting takes the rest of the day. By the time you return to your ship, the adrenaline is completely gone, leaving a cold, shaking void in your chest. The deck is covered in debris, the sails are torn, and the grueling work of repairing the damage begins immediately. There is no celebration, no wild feast, just quiet men, sewing thick canvas with numb, calloused fingers. When the shares are finally divided, you get your cut. It is not enough to buy an island. It is a few common coins, a tin of cinnamon, and an extra ration of watered-down rum. You sit on a barrel, staring at your tiny, miserable reward. You survived a battle. You took a ship, but all you feel is an overwhelming, crushing desire to close your eyes. You lie down on the deck that night, too tired to even climb into your hammock. The smell of gunpowder is permanently etched into your skin. Your ears are still ringing, a high, endless whine that blocks out the sound of the ocean. You look up at the dark sails, wondering how many more times you can do this before the deep sleep finally takes you. But that deep sleep does not come from the sea, comes from simply outlasting it. Years seem to blend together. The chaotic raids, the violent storms, the endless, grueling labor, they all become a single, heavy, gray memory. You realize that the romantic tales of piracy were nothing but lies, sung by men who never had to eat maggots in the dark. Freedom, you finally understand, is not found at the helm of a stolen ship. It is not found in a chest of silver or under a blood-stained flag. Freedom is simply surviving long enough to choose what happens next. Eventually, the day comes. The ship docks at a small, forgotten island, far from the trading routes, far from the reach of the Royal Navy. You step off the rotting wooden planks, and your heavy boots hit the soft, warm sand. You do not look back. The ship sails away, taking the smell of sulfur and decaying wood with it. You live in a quiet hut now, near the water. You mend broken nets. You eat fresh fruit that snaps and drips with sweet juice. Sometimes, the locals ask about the thick, faded scar on your neck. You just smile and tell them you slipped. At night, you walk the beach. The sea still calls to you, whispering in the dark, but you no longer answer. You have had your fill of the endless blue. You did not die in a blinding storm. You did not bleed out on a splintered deck. You did not swing on the gallows. You survived. And now, as this dark story ends, it is time for you to rest. If you are still listening, you have survived the slow horrors of the pirate's life. Feel the soft, clean fabric of your own bed. Notice how quiet your room is. No creaking wood, no screaming winds, no damp, suffocating air. You are safe. You are warm. The endless, dark ocean is miles and miles away. Let your breathing match the slow, gentle rolling of the tide. Breathe in and let it go. Let the heavy, monotonous reality of the past fade away and drift slowly into a deep, peaceful sleep. Sleep well.